After building some Power Automate flows and maybe even a couple of Power Apps, I see a lot of people that start to wonder, okay, I've made all of this, but how can I now take it to the next level by combining everything? And that is exactly what I want to show you in this series. Hey everyone, my name is Jochen. I am a Power Platform consultant at Cegeka. And if you have been around any form of Power Platform or even just a low-code community, you might have heard one of the new buzzwords going around being hyper-automation. But what is it? Well, in short, hyperautomation refers to the somewhat more advanced technologies to further enhance and automate your business processes. So things like process mining, artificial intelligence, and robotic process automation. And lucky us, because it so happens to be that Microsoft's Power Platform has pretty much all of those tools in the toolbox, along with the, of course, more familiar components like Power Automate and Power Apps. Now, rather than doing another technical deep dive into every single one of those tools, the goal of this series is more to give you an overview and to inspire you, because I want to take you along on a development journey where we will build one big single hyper-automation solution together. And in that solution, we will take a lot of those tools to work together as one automation. Now, of course, if you want some more theoretical information on the concept of hyperautomation, there is a link down in the video description that will provide you with probably all the information you are looking for. But as you know, I am more of a hands-on guy, so I suggest we just dive straight in and let me show you what you can expect from this series. If you want to follow along, I will give you everything you need in a second, but first let's have a look at the actual use case that we're going to tackle. Now, I have tried to keep this as generic as possible, so hopefully all of this will be very easily scalable to whatever business needs you or your company have. We are going to build an automation that revolves around a support ticket system. Does it get more generic than that? I beg to differ. Now, very high level, this will be our mission. We will store data on OneDrive, SharePoint, and Dataverse. Now, I deliberately chose that hybrid kind of scenario here, so I can better demonstrate some of the options that you have. We'll make sure that important background processes are covered by Power Automate, and we will fully automate our customer creation process by slipping in some AI builder in combination with an approval step via Outlook and Teams. Then we will build a Canvas app and a model-driven app as the front end for our call agents and our engineers to use to log a ticket, update a ticket, assign a ticket, and so on. After that, we will create a fully functional chatbot that will provide all of our users with the necessary information on the protocols that they have to follow. And for extra brownie points, we will link this to our database so users can actually make queries on the actual ticket data. Towards the end of the series, we will also implement some robotic process automation, or RPA, by building a simple but effective Power Automate desktop flow. And finally, we will have a look at what in the world process mining is and how we can use it to enhance our hyperautomation even more. So, you guessed it, a lot of ground to cover in this series, but as always, let's take it step by step and start at the very beginning. To follow along with this series, you will need to have a couple of licenses in place. Now, I know that Microsoft is known for its, let's say, complexity of their licensing system. So to hopefully make things a little bit easier and transparent, I'm just going to show you what I will be using throughout this series. Because I have set up a Microsoft demo tenant with some trial users that look like this. So my starting point for all of these users is to grant them 2 licenses, being the Office license, if you will, which is now called Microsoft 365 Business Standard. And apart from the external user, they will also all get a Power Apps Premium license, because we will be using, for example, AI Builder and Dataverse, which are premium components in the Power Platform. And of course, we need that first Business Standard license because we will be using OneDrive, SharePoint, Outlook, and Teams, and we simply can't do that without that license. Now, to make things completely transparent, I have added a link in the video description, and you can find some info there that will guide you step by step on how to set up this exact same tenant yourself. The link will also contain all the other files that you need to follow along with the series, like images and files that we will use while testing our stuff. A very quick side note on that, you will need a credit card in a certain step of the process to set up that demo tenant, but I promise you in the end you will not be charged at all. So there is no like hidden paywall or anything like that. I just want to encourage you guys to experiment with all of this, and using a playground demo tenant like this is just perfect for that. If the download link doesn't work for some reason, absolutely let me know down in the comments and I promise you I will fix it. So, if you want to follow along with this series, please make sure that you have a similar starting point. With that being said, let's dive in and prepare our data and then also create the starting point for our hyperautomation solution. Let's log in with our admin user and create a simple Teams to which we will add all of the other users as well. I'm going to use the online version of Teams, which is teams.microsoft.com. Again, I am logged in with my admin user, so I'm just in here going to create a new team. I am going to call this team Hyperautomation Heroes. I don't really need a description. I can leave this on private and my first channel will just be, I don't know, is this general? This is reserved, so we just go with channel 1. And with this, I'm just going to click create. And now, of course, we can add those other users to our team. Now, I'm going to add everyone except for my external Susan, because I want to kind of use that user to mimic an external user, which we will get to later on. But all these other users are part of my hyperautomation team. So I can just look for call agent, and that should give me call agent Jenna. I can look for customer approval Tim. Engineer should be 2, Sally and Joe. So let's get both of them in. And of course, we can't forget about our rookie new guy, Jason. I'm just gonna set all of these to member and then add. There we go. We have now created Hyperautomation Heroes with a channel 1 channel. Now, we're not really going to use channel 1 as such, so it doesn't really matter that it has that awful name. Now, one of the cool things that automatically happens when you create a new team is that you also have a dedicated SharePoint site. And you can easily find that one by going to Files and then Open in SharePoint. There we go. I'm going to ignore this for now, but on here we are going to create our first set of data sources. And let's start with a very simple SharePoint list. Now this has landed me in the general documents folder, or document library, I should say. So I'm first going to go to home, which gets me to the actual site landing page, and then new and list. Let's go for a blank list. And this list is going to be called currency exchange rates. I don't need to give it a description. Yes, I want to show it in the site navigation. Create, please. Now we're just going to add a couple of simple columns. First of all, add column, a text column here. Next, let's call this currency. And I'm not going to bother too much with making these required and stuff like that. As I said, it's not a deep dive, but I just want to give you some simple examples. So we're going to go over this pretty generically and pretty quickly. So name currency, type single line of text, perfect. We don't need a default value, just click save. Next column, exactly the same type. So add column, text, and next, and just give it the name. Name. Again, we're not going to change anything else. Save. And then we have 2 number columns. So let's go add column, number, next. The name will be unit per euro. And I'm only going to change the number of decimal places to the maximum that I can choose here, which is 5. And then click save. And the last column is basically identical. So add column, number, next. This is going to be called euro per unit. And also here, number of decimal places, 5, save. Let's just make this a little bit wider. There we go. And then I don't need the title column. I'm not going to use it. So just title, column settings, show hide columns, untick title, and click apply. There we go. That is our first data source done. The next data source is also a SharePoint list, and it's even more simple, to be honest. So go back to home first and then click new list. Again, blank list. And this one will be called user roles. Show in site navigation. Okay, I don't need a description. Create. And you might notice that I'm using a lot of camel casing, like no spaces in my list names and whatever. That's just how I like to work. If you want to necessarily add a space there, be my guest. In here, first new column, add column, text, next, and let's just call the column email. And that's it. I'm not going to change anything else. Save. And the second column is going to be a choice column. Add column, choice, next. Let's name the column role. And I want to have 3 different options, being call agent, second one being engineer, and the third one being administrator. There we go. Default value can stay on none, doesn't matter too much to be honest, so we can just leave it like this and then click save. And again, we don't need the title column, so title, column settings, show height columns, title, apply, done. Now I'm quickly going to fill up this list with some data. This will probably be different for you because you will have different email addresses. So here we go. Boom. 4 records added. Makes sense, right? My admin user is in the administrator role. My 2 engineers, Joe and Sally, are in the engineer role. And of course, our good friend Jana is in the call agent role. On SharePoint, that is all we need to do for now. So let's move on to OneDrive. I just went to office.com and that is now changed to this URL. And here we can just click OneDrive and then My Files. And I'm just going to upload one Excel file that looks like this. And if you want the exact same file, use that download link that I mentioned earlier. So I am just gonna drag and drop the file on there. And there we go. Now eventually we also want to set up the local repository on our computer to sync with OneDrive, but we'll do that in a later episode. So SharePoint check, OneDrive check. Let's move on to the final part of this data preparation, Dataverse. So let's just open up another tab and go to make.powerapps.com. Now in my case, I only have the default environment here and I really want to have a separate environment for all of this. So because I am an admin, what I can do is click this thing here and then go to the admin center. And once this is loaded, I can go to environments and then just click new. I'm going to give our environment the same name as our team, Hyperautomation Heroes. I'm not going to make this a managed environment. Group can stay empty. Region Europe default. The only thing I really need to change or want to change is trial. And if you have created that demo tenant just like I have, you can set up one of these trial environments yourself. Purpose can stay empty. It will automatically add a Dataverse data store, which is what I want. So next, I'm going to leave these at English and Euro. And then I can now select my security group, meaning these members will automatically have access to this environment when I create it. If I click select, you will see that I can here select my Hyperautomation Heroes group. When I created the team, automatically this was also created, so I can just select this one and then say done. I don't need to have these sample apps and data or these. I'm just going to leave it like this and then say save. It is now in the state preparing and it might take a couple of minutes, and basically all you can really do is click the refresh button until this jumps to ready. And here we go, state ready. It first was in the running state, which I'm not really sure what it is, but it doesn't matter. Now we should be able to see and access our new environment. So if I just go back to Power Apps here, and maybe it's wise to refresh this screen, and then go to environments, and yes sir, Hyperautomation Heroes is now available. Click. And inside of this environment, we are now going to first create a solution, and inside of the solution, we're going to create our Dataverse tables. So make sure you are in the correct environment once you have created it, and then go to solutions on the left. And in here, we're going to go new solution. And all this really needs is a name and the publisher. We don't have a publisher in this new environment, so I'm just going to click new publisher. So I'm just going to type in my name here with a space, my name without a space in the name field. Description can stay empty. Prefix will just be my initials. Leave this as it is generated and then click save. Might take you a couple of seconds, but this is the screen you should see again. And now we should be able to select our freshly created publisher in this list. If you already have a publisher, of course, in this environment, just select that one from this drop-down list. Display name for the solution will be Ticket Hub. And as you can see, the name field is automatically filled. It just trims out that space, which is perfect. I have selected my publisher. Version can stay as it is. We are not going to bother with the more options. Just click Create at the bottom. And this will create the solution and it will take us inside of it. And in here is where we're going to create our Dataverse tables. So make sure you are in fact inside of your solution and then go New Table, Table Advanced Properties. The first table we are going to create is our customer table. Now I am going to add a little prefix in front of every table name, because some tables and field names already exist in any default environment you create, and that can make it really confusing. So I'm just going to add a little prefix called HA for Hyperautomation _ customer. This will be our own customer table. Now don't click save yet, but go to the primary column. Change this from name into customer number. Then open up advanced options and make the column requirement optional. And I will tell you in a minute why. And also change maximum character count to 10. Save. Alright, so our table was created and a bunch of default columns are now showing on screen, which we don't necessarily want. So let's have a look. Created by can go hide. Created on, hide, created by delegate, hide. This can go hide, and that's about it. Because this is a default very weird number that you will see in a minute, which is a unique ID. And we're going to move that to be the first column like that. And now let's go back to our primary field here. If I select this and then go edit column, because we want to change the data type from single line of text to auto number. Because this column, I want to be an auto-generated number. Whenever a record is created in the Dataverse table, Dataverse has to give it an automatic unique ID. That's the idea behind this primary column. So data type, auto number. Required optional, we already set that in the previous step. Searchable is okay. We want a string prefixed number, and the prefix will be cust for customer. The minimal number of digits will be 5, and as you can see, that's why I set to keep that maximum length at 10, because cust and then that little dash and 5 numbers is 10 characters. And finally, change the seed value from 1000 just to 1. And this is a little preview on how that auto-generated primary column number will look like, which is fine with me. So let's go and save. And it is important that this field is set to optional as far as requiredness goes, because we are not going to fill the field when we create the record, right? Dataverse has to fill the field when the record is created. If you set this to required, we're going to get into some issues. Now we're going to add a bunch of text fields, which will also be optional. So let's just start by going plus. Display name will be first name. Single line of text, format, text, behavior, simple, required, optional. Leave all of that as default and then just click save. And I'm going to do the exact same thing 4 more times. So 4 more identical columns. The first one being last name, save. Then we have address, save, plus phone, save, and finally we have plus national registration number, number, save. And now we have 2 more similar text type columns, but these will be required. So plus, the column will be email, and instead of having the optional required choice here, let's go business required. We could click save, or we could set the format from the default text value to email. And let's just do that. This will add some built-in data validation, which might come in handy at some point. So just change the format to email and then click save. The next column will be desired currency. And I'm going to leave this at text, but I am going to change required to business required. Save. And the very last column will be a simple yes/no column. So plus the display name will be is approved, because in the customer creation process, we will have an approval step. And this column will allow us to identify in our database if the customer was approved already or not. So is approved, data type will be choice yes/no. Behavior simple required, let's make this a required field. And the default choice, let's leave that at no. Save. And that's it for our first very simple Dataverse table. Let's move on to the next one. So let's go back one step just by clicking tables here in the left side menu, and then we can once again go new table, table advanced properties. And this one will be called, again with the prefix HA, region assignment. And again, let's go to the primary column and change this to responsible person email. Advanced options, and let's leave this one at business required. Maximum character count doesn't really matter here, so let's just click save. And again, we don't really need these default columns here, so let's just go hide, 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 hide. And we just want to add one more column here, which is called region. So let's click the plus sign. Let's go for region, or we can type it correctly, region. Now for the data type, this is going to be a global choice. So that means choice and then select choice. Behavior symbol, let's go required, business required. Searchable, yes. Selecting multiple choices, no. Sync with global choice, yes. And then I'm going to click new choice because we want to create that choice ourselves. So it's kind of similar to that SharePoint choice that we created, right? So let's go new choice. Display name will be HA_region. And the first option, if you will be Europe. Plus, second option will be US. Third option will be other. And these value numbers are just automatically generated. Don't change those, just click save at the bottom. And now we should be able to find our choice in this drop down. So if I just scroll down to the H here, there it is, HA region. And the default choice, I don't really care, but let's set it to Europe. And then click save. And that is it for this table. And I'm just filling this with some data. So I'm gonna have engineer Joe be responsible for the Europe and the other region. And my engineer Sally will be responsible for the US. Let me make this a little bit wider. There we go. And you can already see the indication here, data saved. You can always double check by going to another table, the customer table in this case, and then back to my region assignment table. And yes, here is my data. And as a little teaser, yes, we are going to use this data in a Power App that we create in one of the next episodes. But for now, the last table that we need in Dataverse is the ticket table. So let's go back one step by clicking tables and then once again, new table, table advanced properties. And let's name this table HA ticket. And let's go to primary column and change this from name into ticket number. And exactly the same logic here as with the customer table, we want this to be an optional primary field. And let's set the maximum character count to 12 for this one. And then click save. Just like we did before, we're going to hide all 4 of these columns by going hide 4 times. We're going to leave this one and our ticket number column. And of course, we're going to add a bunch of new columns. The first up will be another choice column, just like we had before. So click the plus sign. Display name will be ticket status. Data type choice. I want this to be a business required field. It can be searchable. I'm not allowing multiple choices. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit and I'm going to create a new choice once again. I'm going to call this choice HA_ticket status. The first option will be created, or the first status, if you will. Then we will have estimated, new choice, approved. We will have ongoing. And finally, we will also have, of course, completed. Those are the 5 choices that we will use in our use case. Click save at the bottom. And once again, we should now be able to find this choice in the dropdown. If I scroll down, there it is, HA ticket status. Let me quickly check for status. There we go. So there is already a default status choice. That's why I chose to make it unique by adding that little, where is it, prefix here, this one. The default choice here, I want to set to created, because when the record is in fact created, it should normally, logically speaking, always be a created ticket status. And that's it. Make sure this is business required as well, and then click save. Next column we need is the description. So click the plus sign, name, description, data type. I'm going to change this to text and then multiple lines of text. This is the one that I need. Plain text, click. Let's also make this a required field because it's important to have a ticket description, I think at least. So I'm going to set it to required and then click save. The next field we need is a lookup field to our customer table that we created earlier. So click the plus. This will be our customer, and data type will be a lookup. Don't take this one, that's the default one. Just choose lookup. And now for the related table, let's look for our, can I type in here, HA? Yeah, perfect. HA underscore customer, click, that's the one we need, of course. Don't need to go into the advanced options. This is perfect. Make sure that it is required and then click save. Okay, next field is our region. So click the plus, display name, region, and this will be data type choice, then choice. Behavior symbol required. Let's also make this a required field. Searchable, no multiple choices allowed. Sync with global choice, yes, and sync this choice. Obviously, we don't have to create a new one. We already have that one. HA region is the one, click, that I want. The default choice, since it is required, should we set it to something? No, I'm just going to leave this at none and then click save. And now we need a couple of optional fields as well. So let's click the plus and first go for estimated cost, which will be data type number. And then let's have a look at what the options are. Let's just go for decimal number here. Behavior symbol, required, optional, searchable, perfect. Let's click save. The next column will be almost identical, plus let's call this estimated cost in euro. Once again, number and then decimal, and all this can stay as it is, save. And the last two fields have to do with the engineer actually doing something for the ticket. First of all, we need to know which engineer is assigned to the ticket, and we need a field where the engineer can put in some kind of comment, right? And let's start with that one. Plus, let's call this engineer comment, and let's go for text and then multiple lines of text, plain text. Let's leave this optional because when the ticket is created, this will be empty or will stay empty at first. So this can be optional and then click save. And finally, a very simple text field called engineer assigned to. And this can be a single line of text, but we're just going to add in an email address here as the actual data. So let's change format to email. Behavior simple, required, optional, because this will also be empty when the ticket is created, or at least it can be empty. So we need to have this at optional, save. And we're not manually going to fill the data in here. We're going to do that eventually via a Power App that we create. So basically that means we are done with our data preparation. Now let's finish strong in this first episode in the series by creating our first Power Automate flow as part of our hyperautomation solution. So the purpose of this first flow is to have some form of data sync between the currency exchange rates data in our Excel file on OneDrive and our corresponding data list on SharePoint. So the end goal, if you will, is the following. We want to automatically run the flow every day at midnight. So it's going to be a scheduled Power Automate flow. And all that it really needs to do is to loop over the data in that Excel file. It's in the table in the Excel file. And row per row, compare that with the data that is already on SharePoint. If the data for that Excel row doesn't exist yet on SharePoint, we are going to create it. If it is already there, we are simply going to update it with the current data in the Excel file. So let's go back one step and click, for example, on all here in our solution. After this is refreshed, you should now see your tables and the choices that we have made. And in here, we are going to say new automation cloud flow, which is basically Power Automate, and then go for schedule. And the name is hyperautomation _ currency sync flow. And we want to start from, let's say, tomorrow at midnight, and we want to repeat it every day. You could do this once per week if you want to, but this is just how I am going to tackle it, and I'm just gonna click create. So also here, guys, I'm not gonna dive into every little detail, but I am going to explain at least the steps that I do, and I will show you, of course, how I do them. The first thing we want to do is to read the data from the Excel file, and we can do that by clicking New Step and then look for List Rows Present, and you should see an action List Rows Present in the table. Click. This will now create a connection reference, which is nothing to be concerned about. It is perfectly normal, but this is what you should see after that has loaded. The location of the Excel file, well, let's have a look at the options. Oh, there we go. OneDrive for Business. Click. The document library. Let's see what we have here. This is just OneDrive. And then the file, and we can use this little browser thingy here. If we click that to actually look for the file, and since on my OneDrive, as I can show you here, this is literally the only file that is there, so that's why I obviously also just see that file here. So let's go for currencyrates.xlsx, click. And the last thing it needs to know is which table the data is in, because yes, if you want to do it like this in Power Automate, your data has to be inside of a table in your Excel file. Luckily for me, I came prepared. Because if I go into my Excel file and click anywhere inside of this data table, then go to table design, it will show me table 1 as its actual table name. So hopefully we also see that here, and we actually do. So select the name of your table there, and that's it for this action. Now, of course, for every data row that it finds in that table, we want to do something, right? So that means we need a loop, and that loop will be new step, apply to each, if I can type it. There we go, apply to each. Now, what is the data that we want to loop over? By the way, if you don't see this at any point during this whole series, you can always click Add Dynamic Content to toggle or untoggle that window. In here, I need this. The value is the result, if you will, of this action, and that is the data that we need to loop over. So click value, and this is what you should see. And now from here, with the add an action button, we can start to say what we want to happen for each of those rows that it finds. And for each row, we kind of want to look on SharePoint if we already have that row with that data on there. So add an action. Get items is the action that we are looking for. This one, the SharePoint connector, as this is called. Get items, click. Same thing happens. Data connection is being, or connection reference, I should say, is being created. And now we have to specify which SharePoint list that we need Power Automate to connect to. Site address, let's have a look. I only have one site because, again, this is that demo tenant. There is basically nothing on there except for the things that I have just created in this episode. The list name is the currency exchange rates. That's the list we want to use here. And now I want to do a filter, because if I go back to my SharePoint list, so we have a certain row in the Excel file and we want to check if that row is already in here. And we're going to use the currency field for that. So what I basically want to do is show advanced options and go into the filter query field here. And it is somewhat more of a technical syntax that we have to use, but here we go. We want to check if my currency field, that's the name of the actual field on SharePoint, equals, and then in single quotes, in between those single quotes, I want to look for the currency field. Let me scroll down a little bit. The currency field here from the list rows present in the table. So if I just click this and make sure you are in between those single quotes, right? This is how I want to put my filter query. Then I can click this title box from that action to fold it. And now we can say in a condition, so add an action right here. Let's click condition, which is the first action that you see in this suggestions list, condition. And we want to check, we're going to use an expression here, also somewhat more technical. Expression tab, and then type in length, and you should see this. And if you just click it, it automatically gets to that formula. open the brackets, we want to check the length of the result of the get items action, because if that length is higher than 0, that is just an indication that the record was found, right? If it is 0, it didn't find the record, and that is exactly what we want to check here. So make sure you have length and then the opening and closing bracket, and then go back to dynamic content while your cursor is in between those brackets, and then click the value of get items. And this weird looking thing you should also have as a result. So basically this is now there because we clicked value here. Okay, and if you have that, click OK, and this is what it should look like. If you get some kind of error, you probably have made a mistake in the actual formula. You can always go back. If you click here, it should go to the expression tab, and you can make changes here if you want to. So if this length is equal to, let's go for 0. If it is 0, we know that the row is not there on SharePoint, so we have to create it. So if this is true, let's go to the if yes branch and say add an action here. Create item on the SharePoint connector. Click. On which site and on which list do you want to create an item? Well, let's just select basically the same things as we had selected in the get items, which is Hyperautomation Heroes for the site and currency exchange rates for the list. And we can now just fill these with the Excel data. We are ignoring the title field. We're not using that. It's not a required field here, so it doesn't matter. What I can do is click in the currency field and then look for currency. And this is the one that I need, list rows present in table, because the Excel data is what I actually want to copy right into these fields. So currency, in here I'm going to look for name and then scroll down. And this is the one that I need, list rows present in a table, name. Same thing for unit per euro, this one. And euro per unit, this one. So in human language, I'm basically just creating an item on SharePoint, which is an exact copy, data-wise, of the Excel row I am currently looping over. And that's it for this side, so let me just fold that one and let's jump to the if no scenario, which means that the record is already there on SharePoint. We just are going to update it with the Excel data. So what I can do now is add an action, update item instead of create item, right? This is the one that we need. Update item SharePoint, Hyperautomation Heroes, same list, currency exchange rates. And now it needs to know, okay, which record, which item I should say on SharePoint do you want to update? This is why it needs the ID. Well, we can simply just use the ID that we get from the get items action, this one, because this gives us back the actual items, and those are the items that we want to update. But you can see as soon as I click ID, something strange happens. It puts it in another apply to each loop. And this is just because technically this get items could answer with multiple records, right? Multiple records could have that currency in the currency field. We know it's not going to be the case, but that doesn't matter. Power Automate is just saying, well, technically there could be more items, so I'm just going to put it in a loop. No need to go too deep into that. Just know that this is normal behavior, and in our case, it doesn't really matter. And we're going to do the exact same thing here. Title can stay empty. Currency, we're going to look for currency from the Excel file. There we go. Name, we're going to look for name from the Excel file data, which is all the way here. Unit per euro. Same thing. And finally, euro per unit. Click. And that's it. That's literally all we want to do in this flow. Loop over the Excel file. Check SharePoint if that row in the Excel file is already there data-wise. If it's not, create it. If it is, update it. I am going to fold everything. There we go. And then click save. You can also click save here. It's the same thing. So I'm going to click save. Wait for this to be saved, which is indicated on the top left. And might take a little while because this is the first time I'm actually saving my flow. There we go. Saved. Perfect. Let's go back with the little blue arrow. And you will now see that not only do I still have luckily my tables and my choices that we created earlier, I now also have one cloud flow in here and two connection references as well, which again is a pretty normal thing, especially if it's the first time you are developing stuff in this environment. One last thing to do in this first episode, and that is to actually see if this works. Now, I could wait until midnight, obviously, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go to my flow by clicking the name. This takes you to the detail page of your flow, and there's always a run button on top here. So if needed, you can always come in here and test your flow like that, which is exactly what I did. As you can see, 2 minutes ago, I triggered my flow by clicking that run button. The duration of the entire flow was 1 minute and 45 seconds. If I go inside that run by clicking this timestamp, first of all, I can see that my flow ran successfully, which is good, right? But I can also see that the majority of those 2 minutes were spent in the loop, of course, because it looped over 185 records in the Excel, and for each record, it did the check on SharePoint and so on. The final thing to do is to actually check SharePoint. If I go to my SharePoint site and I refresh here, I can now luckily see that in fact, all that data that is in the Excel file is now properly synced to my SharePoint list. And just to prove to you that it actually works, I'm going to go to OneDrive and open this in my browser. And I'm going to change these two numbers to, let's say, 1 point like this, and this. There we go. So 2 unique values. This is automatically saved now. So I'm just going to close this. I'm going to go back to my flow details and run it again. Run flow, done. And let's just wait for approximately 2 minutes again, I hope, and we'll see what the result is. And even though the flow is still running, I'm just going to be sneaky here and go to SharePoint and refresh, because I know that Euro line, there we go, is at the top of the Excel rows, and you can already see that it was updated. So just to prove to you that the update branch of our flow also very much works. Now, obviously, the important part for us is to make sure that the Excel file always has the up-to-date data in it, and that is something that we will tackle in one of the later episodes. So guys, by now we have set up everything we need to get our hyperautomation solution started. And we have even built our first Power Automate flow. So we already did a lot of work in this first episode, but more is to come. In the next episode, we will completely automate our customer creation process by using the artificial intelligence gods of AI Builder in combination with some more Power Automate flows. And we will combine that with some Outlook and some approvals functionality. So yes, exciting times ahead, but for now, thanks for watching guys, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.